Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Racing Bros NASCAR Podcast, episode 36. So yeah, now we finally got our guest. We had to pull him out of the side of the street. We're like, hey man, we really need you to do this. We never have guests. We only have NASCAR drivers, but we have a special friend with us, our friend Robert. Robert, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Just coming at you from work.
That's commitment. He is in the middle of his work shift right now. He told his boss, this is not important. I got a big podcast. I have to be on, man. Take a hike. But
Actually, to be honest, I might have to do some explaining if he walks in because he's actually out busy mowing the track right now.
Oh boy! So we gotta make this quick.
Nah.
And we are joined always with my co-host Brian. Brian, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Not as bad as the Texas race. So about that, where do we even begin with that? Yeah,
We don't.
A race happened.
Let's see here.
Completely, just
Is that okay?
I just can't even begin to describe this race because it was something. So stage one, it was kind of meh. It's just some fuel strategy. We had a big crash in stage one. Kyle Busch took the stage one win with some fuel strategy, so some well-needed points for him. Stage two, and the winner was Kyle Larson. So that was it from Texas. That's all you need to know. I'm kidding. But yeah, we had a big pile up. Stage one with Bubba Wallace, and it looks like Bubba Wallace spun around. He got into Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain, and 10 other cars. It looked like a Talladega wreck.
I think
Yeah,
I had
there were a lot of
Newman
cars.
written down as being involved in that too.
Yeah,
But,
Yeah, I have quite a few cars here.
there
I
are
think
some.
I think they were saying that it was one of the most involved wrecks that they've had at Texas.
I'm not shocked. That was
yeah,
a
I'm not
pile
shocked.
up.
Yeah.
That looked like a NASCAR heat wreck over there. Just like
Right.
a big pile up. And then, stage two was kind of just dry.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. They took their flag and then, there was nothing.
Yes.
Just green flag laps.
Yeah. I mean, it was really nothing. So, and then stage three was crazy. So I think we had 7 or something restarts in stage 3 alone, which is not often you see for Texas. I mean, Texas, you barely get any wrecks. So we had a huge one, and then we had 7 restarts in stage 3. We had some playoff drivers have some calamity. We had Chase Elliott get a loose wheel. Then the 11 and 14 kind of got together, and we'll talk about that after because they had an interesting thing on Instagram comments between Briscoe and Hamlin. Did you see that, Brian?
No. Okay.
I did not.
You didn't think
So basically, NASCAR on NBC posted on Instagram between Hamlin and Briscoe, the contact, and they played Hamlin's radio, which he said basically that Chase Briscoe was that's the idiot, that's what the idiot gets basically, and he wrecked him at the Indy Road course.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chase Briscoe did a nice burn, and he was like, I don't have 10,000 races to my credit, to my background, because Hamlin's I've raced 10,000 races,
Yeah.
which is physically impossible from what people said. But yeah, so they went back and forth on Instagram and Instagram comments. Could you just imagine Dale Earnhardt and fucking Jeff Gordon going at each other on fucking Instagram? That's just wild to think about. But yeah, they got into a little bit of heated match. Chase Briscoe got into the wall, and then next we had an engine blow up, which is shocking, especially with how motors are nowadays.
And it was Logano.
Yeah, it was his first engine like blow up since 2014, Pocono 2014. So 7 years ago, it's the last time Logano blew a motor.
I would say for me, I think in my notes, I had that as kind of the turning point of the race too, because like from there is when the melee starts happening. As far as from that caution forward, it like bred a whole heap of other ones that I'm sure we're about to get into.
Oh yeah,
Everybody became stupid.
literally.
Pretty
Like
much, yeah.
I mean, it's just playoff guys just kind of making desperate moves, try to get every point they can,
Yep.
try to get all they can on the restarts, because we know Texas, it's pretty hard to pass when you get strung out like that with this package and how the turn 1 and 2 reconfiguration and then the PJ1 and resin that's on it. So it's harder to pass at Texas. So with the restarts and this package, you have to get basically everything you can. And then we had the next restart. We had the 17 blocks Kyle Busch, and then Kyle Busch kind of gets in the back of Chris Buescher. He does a long, slow slide on the bottom. Everyone gets all checked up, and then the 14 got into the 38, running him around, backed into the wall, and then erupted into flames. I was like, oh my god. It was pretty fast how the car erupted into flames.
Yeah, it was really fast.
Glad.
A long slide down back down the track to the apron though.
Oh yeah, and then it erupted so fast because they just got to pit road, so they had all that fuel and everything.
Yeah.
But glad Alfredo got out safely. And then we had, I think this was in stage 3. We had the 11 and 12. The 11, 12, and 4 were 3 wide. And Ryan Blaney got on the side of Hamlin, and then gave him a tire rub, and then he had a flat tire, tried to keep it to the wall as best he can, barely tapped the nose on the inside wall, so not much damage. Denny Hamlin just had to, get new tires because they're all flat spotted, but not much damage to the nose. And then another restart, we had the 99 and the 19 getting together. The 19 came down just right in front of Suarez. I mean, Suarez has nowhere to go. You have to be full throttle with this package. You can't lift, especially where he was on the track. And then Suarez was just there, and Truex came down, hit him. Well, kind of like chopped off his nose, and Truex went into the wall. Major damage for Mark Truex. He was out of the race.
Yep.
And then we had another restart, which it was the 17 and the 14 were kind of battling. 14 got loose, and it looked like got into the Chris Buescher. Spun Buescher around. Hamlin kind of finished him off. Had major damage, which I was shocked that he could still go because his nose was pushed all the way in.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just had our final restart, and Kyle Larson got it done. So another Kyle Larson win. He's led the most laps at 1.5 miles ever recorded. So Kyle Larson is having a pretty dominant season with 1.5 miles. But yeah, so you know how we usually rate this race and stuff. If you have a rating, Robert, you can tell us. Because we know we rate it out of 100. If not, it's all good. So do you have a rating for Texas?
Well, if we were rating it against other Texases, it's probably about the same as every other Texas race.
Pretty much.
I don't know. The problem I run into is that I'm a racing fan, and so I don't get as bored watching all the races like everybody else does.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the 550 truther like all the other people are either, where I automatically rate the 550 races lower either. So, yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you what. You guys tell me your rating. I'll tell you if I am higher or lower on that.
All right. So, I'm going to be honest. The first stage had the big wreck. Then nothing else happened. Fuel strategy was kind of interesting. Stage 2 was nothing. Normal NASCAR race. Single file. Follow the leader. Blah, blah, blah. Nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 3, Calamity was like a lot of Calamity. Like over here, we like a little Calamity, makes things interesting. 7 restarts at Texas in Stage 3. It's kind of outrageous. So this race was less poo than usual. So usually Texas is pretty poo. But this race had some Calamity, so it was kind of interesting, especially with the playoffs. Drivers having trouble and creating drama, like the Logano blown motor, the Truex incident, Hamlin, stuff like that. So, honestly, before that, this race probably would have got a 25 because I can't. It's maybe pre-Texas bias, but it's just like this race, it just does nothing for me. As the least looking forward race I look forward to on the schedule is Texas. But I guess some late drama helped it. So I gave it a 40 out of 100. Still below average, I thought. I mean, it's not a lot of action happened. It just kind of crashes, restart for a couple laps, and then you're just like, oh, okay. Now we go back to the normal stuff. So, yeah, that's what I thought about Texas. Brian, if you want to give your rating.
Okay.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you. You know, stage 1, stage 2, pretty boring other than the one huge crash. Stage 3, everybody became absolute idiots. And honestly, I would have argued that this race would have been like straight up a 50 if a lot of the stuff that happened didn't happen. And one thing that you didn't bring up, I did want to add, is Tyler Reddick was trying to side draft on the 24 a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And he almost caused at least 5 big wrecks.
Dude.
He was racing so stupid.
Could you imagine if Byron was still in the playoffs and Reddick is racing him like that?
He would have been.
You got to have a conversation with him. Be like, dude, stop running into me every single race. Because he took him out at the Roval.
Yeah.
And now this race, it's like, dude, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, we run for the same manufacturer. You're not in the playoffs. I know you're trying to get a win here. But come on, man. You got to help me out.
You know, some would say, though, that kind of drama actually makes the racing better. And which a lot of the ones that say that are the ones that don't exactly like the playoff format anyhow. So there's that.
See, so we'll get into it. See, I was like that with the original format with the 16 drivers because they didn't have playoff points transfer over to next round.
Right.
So the original, I think it was like 2014 to 2016 when we had Ryan Newman go into the Final Four.
Yeah.
Top 15 his way to the Final Four appearance. I know, Brian, you like Ryan Newman, but he didn't. If he would have won the championship, I would have been so done. But
I'm sure a lot of people would have been, not just you.
You know, there's one, to my knowledge, there's one driver who's actually done that under the current format. Not in the Cup Series, but Matt Crafton did it in 2019 in the trucks.
Yep. Yep, he did. It kind of blew up the whole system, but I kind of do like the format better with the playoff points transferring. I think it makes it more fair. Instead of, let's say Kyle Larson like blew a motor or whatever and then didn't have all those playoff points and he's out of the playoffs with 9 wins. Kind of like Harvick was last year. I mean, I still am a purist. I still like the full season points. But I got kind of used to the playoffs. I think there is some drama that creates it. Like, I mean, we saw Bristol this year with, Harvick and Elliott, then the Roval last week and stuff. It makes the, racing harder, especially with the newer drivers. Because when I was younger, when I used to watch NASCAR, there used to be a lot of give and take. Like, lap 30 of the race, the guy would just let you go for, 12th or something. But now you can't. Now you got to race for every position because with stage points, that makes it up for it. So you got to race hard every lap. There's not a lot of room. This package makes the racing closer. That's what it's made to do, to keep the cars in, a little pack so that they can make moves. But, yeah. So I got more used to this playoff format. I would personally like a full season one. because I think it would, I mean, that's just how I am. But I think it's a little bit more fair than it originally was, but it's still like kind of, you can have one bad race and your season's over, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, and I can make arguments for both sides because on the one hand, a full season, it while it still awards consistency for your top tens and all that, and then also if a guy does really good and is able to carry all that momentum through the year, yes, he should absolutely be the champion. But on the other hand, because the business savvy side of me also see why NASCAR does it, why all the tracks push for it, because with this system, you know, you get to Phoenix or whatever your last race of the year is for the championship, and it is definitely one of the most important races. Whereas under the old system of just, straight up points gained all year and whoever has the most is the champion, under that format, you could get to the last 3, even 5 races, and those races, they don't mean a damn.
Right. See, yeah, I also get that point now. Because with the Final Four, it's just the 4 drivers, and they all have an equal chance to get the championship. So you can imagine that for like a sponsor, like sponsorship and stuff. Like they're the headlines of the race that weekend. So you're gonna see those cars everywhere. We're gonna see the 5 car everywhere. We're gonna see whoever else gets into that week-long push to the championship. So I see that for a sponsorship side. Yeah, it's just a racing purist in me. I think, Brian, you're probably the same way with your F1, with the full season championship, especially with Hamilton and Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think both sides are good. The only thing I don't like about the full season championship is just the fact that I don't like seeing the racing end at a certain time. I don't want there to be 4 races left and then the numbers drop and like nobody wants to watch it because there's really nothing to race for anymore.
Right.
So I definitely like the way that NASCAR is doing this because I want this to come down to Phoenix. I want to have fun watching every single race and being like, okay, is it going to be Denny? Is it going to be Kyle Larson? Is it going to be Truex? Maybe Kyle Busch makes a comeback. You never know. And it's just, I don't know. I think that this format is a lot better than the full season format.
I get you. So, Brian, did you say rating for this race, Brian?
I did not. I gave this race a 45.
Okay.
I would have given it a 50 if people weren't just stupid at the very end.
Gotcha. So do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us?
Yeah, because it wasn't, like, if you take out really the final 35 laps and you ignore all the chaos and melee and just overall bullshittery of the final 35 laps, it really wasn't anything spectacular. So, I mean, honestly, I was kind of thinking of 50 myself, so...
Yeah, it's just one of those races. It's just like, get over with. It's
right.
But, yeah, that was Texas and Brian. So now...
You take the lead back, huh?
No, I don't.
Really?
So, you gained on me a lot, with Talladega and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now... And then we tied in points last week with our picks that we do every week.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm only 3 behind.
Ooh.
So it's coming down to the end of the season, Brian.
I like it.
So we got to do some smart picks here.
Yeah.
Okay. So question 1. So we got questions. Robert, if you care to answer them, you can. Sure. I know you haven't seen them. Question 1. Does Texas deserve a playoff race or even a race on the schedule? If so, should it be shortened or replaced by another racetrack? So this is this is a hard question for me to answer. I hate taking races from racetracks. I think that's super unfair, I think. But I mean, now that we have COTA in the Texas market, I could see Texas losing a playoff race. I think it could have a regular season race. and then if it has All-Star Race, and then it has Coda, because I would like to see a track that would make very interesting in the playoffs, especially how it's like played out. I would like to see a Pocono race in the playoffs.
That would be interesting.
Because
It would be.
Pocono is one of a kind, unique track. I mean, it's another element, if we want to really go for the wow factor and things like that, could you imagine a few mileage run at Pocono, like with the playoffs on the line? That would be very interesting, because we know Pocono usually plays out with a few mileage race. I just think it makes it more interesting than a Texas would be. If Texas would run in the regular season, I think it should be shortened. I mean, 500 miles of Texas. No, no. It's okay. We can run a 400 mile, or even 350. Let's just make it like shorter, because I think the shorter Texas could make it like more bearable for people. And then, yeah, I think that's what I say. So, whoever wants to go next.
Robert, you want to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I have a long answer for that one, because I do think Texas deserves a race, but that's mostly because, sorry, a bug fall on my desk. Random tomfoolery. Woo! No, I feel Texas deserves a race, because I feel, really honestly, every racetrack on the circuit, whether it's ones we race at currently, ones that are in the pipeline of making it to the schedule, what have you, they all deserve a playoff race at some point, maybe not every year. But on that note, I think Texas has run its course, because it's been on the circuit, it's been in the playoffs since the get. So I think it's time to replace Texas with another track.
Right.
I don't what track that is. You could insert any of them. Honestly, Pocono would be a good one. And you could do. I mean, so I've noticed though with NASCAR that the one kicker on that is that they tend to want to put a race in the playoffs that they've already raced at earlier in the year. The exception to the rule was, I think, in not last year, obviously, partly because of COVID, but just everything was chaos with the schedule last year. But I think Darlington is the only playoff race, that and the Roval, that they don't race on, or didn't race on earlier in the year in previous years.
Right.
This year, obviously, with adding a May race for Darlington, made the Roval race the only race that is brand new for the schedule for the year. So, teams typically have, data either from the year before, but also from the, from earlier in the season. So I think that's one thing that would keep Pocono off the schedule, or at least in the playoffs.
See, I have a counterpoint to this technically.
Okay.
So, technically, another racetrack was not in the season prior. Like, we went to Bristol, but it was dirt Bristol. I know
That's true.
I know they have notes
No,
from.
that is a very good point.
I know
that
they
is
have. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know they have notes from last year.
That
Bristol.
is a very good point. So this year they did have. This year they still had two racetracks, even though they had raced at one, but it was on dirt. So, that is a good point, Zach. That is a very good point.
Wow, look at podcast host over here. I'm gonna tap my freaking back right there, pat on the back.
But like I said, I really don't have one to replace Texas. So, I mean, to be honest, I kind of really think any of them would be good. But, I mean, one thing they could do is because they are next year kicking Richmond out of the playoffs. They could swap those 2 dates, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, Richmond would probably give us more action than Texas. Even though it's not technically what it used to be, because
No.
Richmond was the old action track and things like that. But it's short track, so people love short tracks. But Brian, do you think you have a answer to this? Do you think Texas deserves a playoff race, or you're like, no way, Jose?
I think that Texas deserves a regular season race. I don't see it being, I mean, as we saw this year, don't really see it being that fun as a playoff race. I just, I don't know how I personally feel about it. I think, like you said, a Pocono would be nice. And then I was like, oh, well, Homestead's coming in to this year. But then it's like, it doesn't really matter. It's already in the playoffs. They're not going to just kick a race out and then leave a blank space. So I was thinking, what if a track like Nashville, I know it was kind of a tryout this year, and then next year they're bringing it back as a regular season race. But what if they had 2 Nashville dates?
I do like that idea, Brian, because we saw the hype for Nashville. Yeah. We saw that environment. I think me and you both texted at the same time, like, can we go to this race next year? Because it's just excitement with Nashville. Like, could you imagine, especially a cutoff race? Like, let's say a round of 12, like, cutoff race at Nashville. I could just only imagine the crowd in there.
The only problem with that is then who loses a date, number one, and two, you've already got Dover that's given up a race date as its sister track,
Well, we already have Texas as the All-Star race.
Right.
Do we really need 2 Texas races on the schedule, especially with going back at COTA again next year?
Most people would argue yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, I take that back. They might not, with the amount of tweets I see saying blow it up.
But I think it would be weird to go to an all-star, like have an all-star race with like a track we don't even go to.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting, like novelty, but like, would that race want to be Texas? I mean, like, could we get a better track? Like, I'm sorry, like, I wouldn't want to run one all-star race at Texas. Like, could we run somewhere else more interesting? Like, anywhere at all, please?
Well, honestly, I mean, if you keep Texas as the all-star race, who does it really hurt,
It just makes me not want to watch the all-star race.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
I mean, Texas doesn't have a draw to me. It's just, I see Texas, I'm like, ugh.
Let's put the Glen as the all-star race.
A road course?
I mean,
no, I'm joking.
I mean, one point, and we're getting off topic, I know we are, but real quick, one idea is, with them throwing around the idea of bringing Wilkesboro back, you could, if they want Texas to be a regular season race, I'm okay with that, considering the amount of formatting it took to make the all-star race interesting. I think Wilkesboro would make a good all-star race because it's not one, as a test.
Yeah.
See if it'll work.
See, I like that idea, but Wilkesboro is going to need a lot, like for infrastructure and shit like that. The one track I would think would be more viable would be a Rockingham, because Rockingham, North Carolina, near NASCAR teams, they have the more infrastructure. It doesn't take that much to get Wilkesboro up and going, like it would for Wilkesboro.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea, especially if it's a short track.
Right.
That'd be pretty cool for an all-star race.
And I think. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, even like the LA Coliseum. Why don't you run that as an all-star race? That'd be pretty cool. If it turns out we got to see, next year's Clash.
That's gonna be interesting for sure. Another one thing I did think of, well, not think of that um, anytime somebody brings up uh, Rockingham, you know why Rockingham's not on the schedule, right?
Why is that?
If I read correctly on the old interweb, which I know you can't always believe everything on there, but a lot of the reason that Rockingham's not on there is because of Texas. Somebody had sued years ago to get Texas a second date because apparently it was promised or something like that, and so
Yeah, I think I remember reading that.
yeah, and so for that reason, they had to take Rockingham off the schedule, and then it's never come back.
Yeah, I think it was also like a long time ago, before the. I mean, you guys both know the 2003 Darlington Southern 500 finish, or was it 2003 between Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven, bump it to the line. You know, we've seen that finish
Yeah.
1,000 times.
Mm.
That race actually saved Darlington from even getting the axe too,
Yeah,
because Darlington wasn't bringing a huge crowd, because Darlington was kind of viewed as but now it's like an icon with with that race, and now the finishes we've had since then. But now we're gonna go to our second question. So Harvick got asked again about the Chase Elliott incident. So I just want to ask, why is Harvick still constantly bringing up the Chase incident every time he has a microphone? Because it seems like every time I hear a Harvick soundbite, he's talking about Chase. So in this certain soundbite, Harvick was saying, Chase should stop worrying about me because I'm not racing for a championship. He should figure out how to run as fast as the 5 car. Which I'm like, Harvick, dude, come on. Like, it's been 3 weeks. You're still mad about it. You failed. You wrecked him. He came back. You got intimidated, and you hit the wall. You shit your brains out and hit the wall. So, why you used to talk? Are you butthurt that you fucking couldn't crash him? Like, come on, man.
I think I saw was the what you saw, was it from Gluck?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I honestly I don't think Harvick is bringing him up just willy-nilly out of the blue. I think because I've seen other reporters mention this as well. A lot of the reason that he keeps talking about it is because he keeps getting asked about it.
Right.
So, you keep getting asked, you're gonna keep answering because otherwise the media they don't leave you alone. And so, and I think he would move on and quit mentioning it if people would stop asking him.
True. I think it also has to do with the fact. I think also Bristol meant way more to him because he knew he might have knew like that was his chance to win right there. Like I mean, he's winless the whole year. He just came off a 9-win season. He's pretty pissed, I would assume, that he can't win, or is like not the car he was last year. So I guess probably
and
Bristol.
then with the rumors floating around about SHR and everything.
Yeah, it's just. So I think he's pretty. Bristol really pissed him off. Must have,
Well, yeah, and I mean, and I can understand that too because I myself I would be pretty upset and peeved about something like that. But at the same time, that's racing, and it's not like he was, yeah, you could make the argument that he was totally blocking him, but he didn't. It's not like Harvick went up the track and then all of a sudden Elliott went up the track, like you said. You know?
It's just
So.
Yeah.
I see it completely differently, I think, because, Harvard can keep getting asked and asked and asked about this, but you need to think about it. There's football players, basketball players, there's F1 drivers, there's IndyCar drivers, even, honestly, there's even Xfinity Series drivers who have just told the media to shut up about an incident.
Right.
So while, yes, I do think it's partially on the media, it's also on Harvick because he has the chance to walk away from the question.
He could, but this has always been Harvick. It's like Harvick has not changed at all since he's came into the Cup Series. It's just like he's always the instigator. I mean, we've seen numerous times he instigates.
I have a little bit of a counterpoint to Brian's comment real quick. I've heard through different media sources, because I'm not as much as I used to be, but I'm a little bit of a podcast connoisseur.
Mm-hmm.
But different things I've heard that they actually aren't able, the NASCAR drivers and stuff, they're not able to tell the media to just shove it and shut up and quit asking about it. Like there's like you guys have seen the one video because it's funny of Kyle Busch, who was he imitating? Richard Sherman, I think, and he said he was just there so he didn't get fined or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a true thing, though. NASCAR had started telling the drivers that you can't ignore the media all the time, and you have to make media appearances, and you have to answer the questions, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong on that, but I think that's a thing in NASCAR, too. Kind of like a lot of other sports have started adapting. So, that kind of hurts, someone like Harvick, who is, got this big incident behind him now and maybe trying to move on, but is being hounded by the media about, well, what do you think about Chase Elliott this week? And, all of that.
See, but you can also argue against that as well, because if NASCAR is telling them, if you continue, there's going to be repercussions about this, don't you think you would kind of allow the guy to say, hey, shut up about this?
Not necessarily, because NASCAR views have been, good press is, or bad press is good press. It gets eyes. And every time Harvick spews something, Twitter goes crazy. It gets the top, it keeps NASCAR in the topic feeds for Twitter. It brings more eyes to, the sport, to, whatever media thing that they're trying to get fans or, just viewers, not necessarily fans, but, future fans.
So, I mean, we've seen this with NASCAR before, like what they've implemented. The 550 package visually looks close racing. What does NASCAR promote in any of their highlights they ever post? Crashes. Also, casual people wants to see the NASCAR crash. What do people also look at NASCAR? Fights.
Yeah.
They want to see this. They want to see.
They're gonna egg it on.
Yeah, they want to see that. It's like the things NASCAR has done has all went to the casual fan. That's why we have the 550 package. Look up any highlights on NASCAR. Every time it's either going to be a thumbnail of a crashed car, or it's going to be like crashed like somewhere in the video.
Right.
And then they're going to promote the hell out of this. You don't think next year at the Roval they're going to show the Chase Elliott, Harvick crash?
Oh, of course.
Over and over and be like, Roval, 3:30 Sunday, blah, blah, blah. That's what when people look up NASCAR, that's what they want to see. They want to see the fights, they want to see the crashes, and then they want to see drama. Like, they love it. And then especially with the 550 package, if people see, or the crazy restarts, like they're 5 wide, they're like, they do that in NASCAR? Holy shit, man. We got to see that. Just, that's what they're all trying to claim onto. They're still trying to claim on the casual fan. It's what they've been doing for the last decade or so, especially even with the playoffs. Tighter points race, more drama, Game 7 moments. Look, only Chase Elliott's only 2 points below. Can he make it up? That's what they've just been pandering, the last decade and a half. Now we go on to some news. All right, so not a big news week this week. I saw that Liberty University signed an extension with Hendrick. 12 primaries a year until 2026. That's William Byron's sponsor. So we got to assume a Byron extension is going to come with that. Parker Kligerman to drive the 96 this weekend at Kansas. Oh, I just seen that. I didn't even. Oops. But yeah. Now, just Parker Kligerman's going to drive the 96 at Kansas, so we'll see how that goes. Their first 1.5-mile race of the year, and then after this, we're going to take a quick break before we preview Kansas. All right, we're back. Robert had to go pee. No, I'm kidding. He had to close up shop, so just had to make a quick little break. But now we're going to preview Kansas. So 550 package, going to be close racing. Restart's going to be crazy. It's going to be a cooler fall day in Kansas. I wish it was a night race. I always like the night races at Kansas. Always thought those were cool. But it's going to be a day race. And yeah.
400-mile race too, right?
Yep. It is not the Bushy McBush 400.
No.
But Brian, you want to start us off with a pick? Do you got a pick?
Yeah, sure. This week's going to be a tough week for, a couple drivers. Pretty much this is going to be the point where, Logano, Truex, and Keselowski either prove themselves or they're going to put themselves into a bad situation, getting them into a you pretty much need to win situation. I ended up going with one of those three drivers, surprisingly. The way that JGR has ran all year, I decided to go with Truex in hopes that he is going to turn around his luck from the last two races.
Gotcha. So I'm also going to go with the JGR driver. I'm going with Hamlin because he has been strong, especially on Kansas, and I think he's the most feared competitor of Kyle Larson. So I think Hamlin locks himself in with this race.
See, and I agree with that because I feel like Hamlin is going to want to get a win either this week or next week at Martinsville because he definitely wants a win before he goes into Phoenix.
Gotcha.
I don't think he wants to point his way in at all. That said, I'm going to go with Logano.
Ooh.
Not really a Logano fan.
We're not either.
But,
yeah, we definitely aren't.
In listening and watching the Texas race and listening to, a lot of, what the announcers are saying about how, a lot of teams when their drivers are in the playoffs and they win that race, one, it's 2 weeks off more or less because all your assets for that car go to Phoenix, they go to that car. They don't, nobody, and so like for Larson, nobody cares about the next 2 weeks for him.
Yeah,
right.
All they're worried about is Phoenix. And I feel like at Penske, they don't really have to worry about Blaney so much. He's 17 points to the good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They have to worry about Keselowski, yes, but at the same time, not as much as they have to worry about Logano. And so I feel like Penske, on one hand, is going to put all their remaining eggs in the Logano basket, partly because Logano needs them, but also because while, they've not given up on Keselowski, even though he's leaving next year, but he is leaving next year. Yeah. And so, that kind of plays a part in their decision-making. And then also for the fact that Logano has kind of shown that in pressure situations like this, he does actually pretty well. I'll give him that. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I'm going with Logano.
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with you on that because also the fact that I feel like if Keselowski gets into the Final Four, he's gonna do terrible. It's just kind of one of those things that you can't really trust Keselowski at the end of this year. And I mean, Logano also has pretty good odds. I'd feel like for winning the championship at the end of the year. Of course, not as good odds of Larson or Hamlin, but he's definitely up there. I mean, he's had a really good year, and I mean, it shows. He's in the round of 8.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely think you had a good choice there.
Yeah, and especially if Logano doesn't get a win this week, watch out for Martinsville with him.
Yeah,
For real.
he will act stupid if he needs to.
Yeah.
He will Logano his way to a championship.
Indeed, he will.
And he doesn't have Matt Kenseth there to take him out.
Oh my god. All right, well, thank you guys for joining along on us for this podcast. Brian, thank you for coming again, as
Thanks
you
for
always
having me,
have.
as always.
Robert, special thank you coming along. I know it was 1 week later, but thanks. You're probably our first main big supporter of this podcast, so we had to come let you on to like say some opinions and stuff like that. But we really appreciate you coming along. You're our
That was
second
pretty
guest.
amazing.
Yeah, man. And anytime you want to come on or anytime you have time, you're more than welcome to come on.
Yeah, I mean, now that the season's wrapping up here at the track, I mean, I'm pretty. It'll be might have another 10-minute break in there, but that I might need. But no, it's pretty quiet around here, so I can fit it in.
Nice.
Well, that's a podcast, boys. We want to thank our partner, Instacart. Instacart makes your life easy. If you're not using it, what are you doing? You can continue podcasting or sim racing. Just order your groceries on Instacart. Use the app. Some guy is going to get you your groceries and bring it to your door. And then, you have groceries. So you can continue doing what you want to do. Makes your life easy. You can get deliveries as little as 1 hour, but it's between an hour and a half is what I experienced. But yeah, make sure you use our vanity link in the description below if you want to sign up and use Instacart. But yeah, thank you guys for partnering us again. And thank you guys all for listening to another episode. We'll see you next week.
Later.